I suppose the starting point is Code Section 162, which says that you may, quote, deduct ordinary and necessary business expenses, including a reasonable allowance for salaries and other compensation for personal services actually rendered, end quote. It sounds as if the determination of reasonable compensation is, by definition, incredibly subjective, doesn't it?
Mike, absolutely. Reasonable compensation is probably one of the most subjective concepts in the entire Internal Revenue Code. One of the reasons why reasonable compensation is so litigated is because the stakes are so high to the IRS. For corporations, compensation is deductible to the corporation. On the other hand, a dividend paid by the corporation to shareholders is not. If you're able to sustain a payment as compensation, then the corporation has a deduction. On the other hand, if it were challenged and rather treated as a dividend, then the corporation doesn't get a deduction, which would have the impact, therefore, of raising the income of the corporation and therefore increase the amount of tax that the government is going to collect from corporate taxpayers.
Well, if you go back through the case law, there are certainly a number of so-called common law factors that courts typically use in analyzing the reasonableness of compensation. I suppose these can be used to justify and to attack any executive salary, can't they, Richard?
Mike, there are a number of factors that courts can look at and do look at. And all courts don't use the same list. Some use a short list, some can use as many as 20 different factors. They can cover such things as the nature of the activity that an employee is engaged in, the nature of the business of the employer, the scarcity of employees doing this particular kind of work. It can be the particular contributions that the employee makes to the corporation. There are a whole variety of things, and there's no right or wrong list. There's no particular weighting that is used. It's kind of, there's a whole litany of things that a particular court is going to look at, evaluate, and based on that compendium of items, come to some conclusion. There's no black and white answer to whether or not a particular situation is going to be viewed as reasonable or not under this common law approach.